Tonight, on Unsolved Mysteries, we find out who gives a fuck about Baby Yoda. Apparently everybody gives a fuck about Baby Yoda. I'm Captain Vinzer Flynn, and you're listening to Shitfaced in Hyperspace. This little asshole is stealing the show.
Seriously, I'm pretty sure it's no longer called the Mandalorian. It's called the Baby Yoda.
Well, I mean, he does have some pretty good scenes, though, in this episode.
Which one, Baby Yoda or the Mandalorian?
I mean, both.
Mandalorian was in the show?
The soup drinking was pretty cute.
I don't know. I think the ramp scene is my favorite.
That's fair.
Or the cockpit scene.
And you know, when that the cockpit scene was so good, when he reaches back over to switch it, he's old enough, he knows what he's doing. He knows he's being bad.
Oh, for sure. For sure. You can see it. Like he's like, he, I'm a little troll, he.
I think it's kind of playing on the actual how much of a dick that Yoda was in the Empire Strikes Back.
Well, that's a good call. I didn't even think of that. Yeah, when we first meet Yoda, he's a bit of a troublemaker.
Oh, it's the kid pushing his boundaries. Every fucking teenager does that.
Teenager, we're trying to figure out, like, Merida said about, okay, are we taking 900 as being 90 for Yoda? So if he's 50 years old, what does that make him? Like, well, depending on how his age scales, like, we're guessing maybe 1 or 2.
I mean, at the same time, though, like, it could be their species could start really slow and then accelerate as they get older, or as they get,
So like a dog.
Or a cat.
It made me think of elves in D&D, how very often, at least in Dragonlance, they weren't even considered adults until they were 99.
Which is really interesting if you think about it. I did see a post similar to this a while ago. Can you imagine being an elf who is an infant at the same time as a human infant, and they're like friends when they're babies, and then all of a sudden the human is like dead and gone by the time like the elf leaves his village because it's now an adult?
I mean, crossing over to one of my other fandoms in the Asari, the Asari from Mass Effect have the same kind of thing where they live for 1,000 years. So the way that they view relationships is a lot different than the way that younger or more quickly lived species would be.
Speaking of which, I think I'm finally closing in on beating Andromeda, and I think Drack's my favorite.
Drack is everybody's favorite.
But he's 1,000 years old, but he acts like the old man, right? So I didn't actually have time between helmet making to jot down any notes for this episode, so we do not have to go chronologically tonight. We can jump all over the place. And one thing I want to talk about is how fucking awesome the ATST was.
I think for me, honestly, I think the way that this episode portrayed the ATST completely fixes it in canon, because of in the way that they explain it in the show or in the regular Star Wars media, is that it's supposed to be a big threatening machine, and it never really was viewed that way in the movies. So when it actually comes out of the trees, you see those red eyes light up for the first time, you actually get goosebumps.
For sure. They've always, like in other Star Wars media, like the Ewoks take them down by crushing them with trees, and then in Rebels, they just cut their legs off. And for people without the Force or lightsabers or whatever, they must be fucking terrifying.
I'm just impressed they actually referred to it as an ATST on screen for like the first time ever.
And they do that all the time in Star Wars, and we get a ton of our information from the books and stuff that comes out as supplemental information, but there is so many times in the movies where they just don't say what it is, but it's officially that. It's always been the ATST, but yeah, you're right. No one ever says it. They just say Walker or whatever.
Yeah, so I think that was kind of neat. It just goes to, I think it just goes to Kara, is her name? Yeah. Kara's soldier background, where she immediately figured out, yep, ATST, seen this before, we need to get the hell out of here type of reaction she gets when she sees the footprint. But that's classic. That's classic soldier talk, referring to something like that.
And I loved the Cara Dune character. I hope we see more of her. I thought this was her episode. She was great.
So, of all the episodes so far, I will say I liked this one the least, if only because it was so gosh darn predictable. And I will admit I would have liked it more if they didn't try for the romance trope. Like I know what they're trying to mirror. They're trying to mirror Seven Samurai and all that good jazz. It was pretty freaking obvious, but I just thought the romance part was kind of shoehorned. It felt shoehorned to me.
I thought that this episode could have probably easily been broken up into 2 separate episodes.
But you know what? 41 minutes for everything they wanted to convey in that episode. It was pretty much on time for the length.
I agree. I just said, like, the whole episode, I guess, based on what I was reading online is I guess it takes place over, like, a week. So it's not like or a week or, like, a couple weeks. And then, so that could have been broken up a little bit more. You could have seen more of, how the community was built and how, like learned a little bit more about that other character, the one that's really good at shooting.
That's really interesting because it definitely doesn't give that feeling when you're watching it. It makes it feel like he was there for a weekend.
In the dialogue, yeah, that Cara says something like, in the last, we made a big noise a couple weeks ago, so they make a point of showing that. For a show that's been great about montages, they kind of missed an opportunity to do a montage here showing some time had passed and that, the baby was settling in with his friends and such.
Well, here's another interesting thing. Do you think that character, the widow, do you think that she's going to make a return later in the show?
She seemed like she had a real backstory, so like it feels like if they don't, it's another missed opportunity.
But I think she's a stormtrooper.
Oh, that's an interesting theory. I like that.
Oh, that's interesting because he does know how to shoot. Pretty. My thing with her was like I know the trope character that she's playing from Seven Samurai, but I do wish they had like gone into like why do you know how to use a blaster so well? Because she's referred to as the widow, so like where did her husband die or whatever?
On the Death Star.
That'd be cool.
Oof. So yeah, I really like Cara. She seems like a really cool character for the Mandalorian to play off of.
I thought they were great together. I loved the the fight scene, and Fat Apollo posted that thing earlier today, talking about how this was Gina Carano's episode, and she completely kicked ass in her first fight with the Mando there, and then Baby Yoda completely steals the scene, but like she was awesome in it, and I hope we see her back.
I do just wish we, so she's a ex-rebel shock trooper, right? So I just wish we got to see her with something a little heavier than a pistol.
Right. And this comes back to what I was wondering about before, because she's like said that they were doing peacekeeping and stuff after the Empire fell, and this is what I was talking about the rebels that were just there for the fight, and then when it's over, they don't want to, be part of it anymore. That's because there's not enough action.
In the promotional poster, she is seen carrying a much larger rifle. One thing I always found interesting about the fight scene is it's never really touched upon why people can punch armor and not hurt their hand.
I know, right? I was like, she's punching him in the helmet. This happened, I remember, in a G.I. Joe comic. Some guy tried to punch Destro in the face, and he was like, ha ha ha, and kicked the shit out of him.
So somebody was ragging on that online, like, she's punching Beskar. Why is he even flinching? I mean, the force is still going to transfer to the helmet. It's just, just going to shove your helmet into your cheek and maybe push you a little bit. Like, you're still going to take hits. They're just not going to hurt.
This is why Iron Man wouldn't work, because every time he lands, the suit might be fine, but your brain still sloshes around in your skull.
Oh, for sure. Like, Tony, like, taking hits to the chest and stuff, like, no way. There's no way. So the one thing I've been trying to take from each episode is, like, what are the showrunners trying to show us this episode, right? So the first episode, it's introducing the character. He's got lots of cool gear. He's very skilled. There's a clan of Mandos. They're kind of in hiding. The second episode is, the Baby Yoda is force sensitive. So that's a thing. The third episode, Beskar is super powerful, yada, yada, yada. And then this episode I felt was just like This whole episode was just to show us that no matter where the Mando and Baby Yoda run, that bounty hunters are still going to try to find them, and that's pretty much what this episode was trying to set up.
Or that the Mando actually has feelings.
Oh, he's a total softie.
Well, I'm kind of impressed. He's like super polite. Is like Pascal Canadian?
He was very nice to everybody, wasn't he? So the thing that was interesting to me in this episode about the whole helmet thing is when she said, "What happens if you take that off? Will they kill you?" And he's like, "No, but I can't put it back on again," meaning like he'd somehow be ostracized from the clan. So again, this is lending weight to the theory that this is either a new thing amongst Mando since the Empire fell, or it's just something to this particular tribe, this particular clan. Because, I mean, again, Sabine, Saxon, all those guys, they took their helmets off.
And then he took his helmet off right after she left in front of a giant window.
I know, right?
Yeah, I pointed that out while we were watching it. I'm like, so you can't take your helmet off in front of people, but yet an open window is fine? What?
I was super surprised he took it off at all, like on camera.
So Mandos are like luchadors then.
I guess.
I never take off my mask.
It's when in the fight in was it the second or third episode there where the Heavy tries to take his helmet off. I was like, I need to put a chin strap in.
Well, I kind of like the fact you don't take your helmet off in public. I mean, it's nice to see that they aren't that they're at least bending to reality. Like this guy has to eat, so his helmet has to come off. He just does it in private. It's like it reminds me of like Judge Dredd. Judge in the comics, you never ever see his helmet off ever, and if you do, it's like the back of his head. You never actually see his face. So I like that mystery.
And that part of it does make sense to me and does appeal to me. Like, I can't think of a time when me, Gung Ho, and Amasti were in Mos Eisley and had our helmets off. You know what I mean? Around outsiders, it makes perfect sense, and and creates the mystique of fear around Mandalorians. That part I do dig.
So I'm thinking possibly like they may expand, maybe they'll expand that rule that you'll only take it off like in private or in front of a loved one, like your spouse or something like that.
There's going to be infinite interpretations on this forever unless we get a lot more a lot more info.
I have a feeling that we will probably get some more insight into why this happened, because like they have to acknowledge the fact that it has been in the past where they've been able to take their helmets off. So something has to have happened recently where they're changed their perspective. Maybe it could be they're thinking that because of what happened to their race or to their people on Mandalore with the Empire, that they just are preparing to be expected to be attacked at any time now.
Yeah, I think whatever we find out, I think you're right that the Empire is going to figure into it completely.
So the next episode is the last one directed by Filoni. So I'm very intrigued to see what we'll get out of that. So a lot of people online complained, or I'm seeing a lot of people online complain that this episode felt like filler, much like the second one did. And I'm just thinking like, but we don't really know what we don't know what it's working towards, right? Like at the moment, the Mando doesn't appear to have an overarching goal other than like bunkered down somewhere. So I don't understand how they can consider this as filler.
What? People online were complaining? I refuse to believe it.
I know, it's outrageous.
Star Wars fans too? Fuck no, never.
I was just about to say, do all the channel or the episode headers make out like a sentence?
The Child Sin Sanctuary. Maybe not.
That'd be a really poor name for a whorehouse.
I was in a band called the Child Sin Sanctuary. So little tidbit of the episode I didn't notice until I saw it in subtitles. The guys that looked like the Uruk-hai orcs were Klatooinians.
Yeah, I was reading that. Apparently, they were a slave race of some sort.
Looks like they had enough of everyone's shit then. Maybe I don't blame them so much now.
Yeah, so all it says about in canon for them is they're a species to the planet Klatooine, worked as henchmen for and bounty hunters, and they have actually specific named one called Castus.
Interesting. I've been seeing classic Star Wars races scattered around the backgrounds like Rhodians, and seen a few Twi'lek girls. We still haven't met Natalie Tenna's Twi'lek yet.
Now, in Legends, they say they were closely associated with the Hutts as criminals, soldiers, slaves. And by the time the Galactic Civil War started, they were starting to break away and become their own people.
I've almost turned trying to spot Twi'leks into a drinking game. And a Lothcat.
Yes, I squeed, as did Merida.
Was that the thing that was going to make the leap from animated to silver screen? Is that it?
I hope not.
I hope that's not the only thing.
Yeah, I hope that's not the only thing.
Because, I mean, there's supposed to be like a major character apparently making a jump. So I guess we'll have to wait and see on the next 4 episodes.
If it turns out to be a bit of an older Sabine in the final episode, you guys are going to have to scrape my brains off the wall.
We'll stand by with a spatula.
I would definitely be down for an older Sabine.
Because Filoni is so involved, it makes me suspicious in a good way.
I mean, realistically, they have the advantage of if Sabine is just wearing her armor, she won't have to try to fit to like a specific body type. She could just be whoever she wants to be and have the actress actually voice the character.
Honest to God, eh? Maybe that's why they're doing the no helmets off thing, so she doesn't have to take hers off and they can voice it over.
Oh, that would be awesome.
Suddenly I'm okay with it.
As far as I'm concerned, Star Wars should just hand the keys to Favreau and Filoni and just say, have at her.
Well, you know what? It sounds like they're kind of doing that to an extent, because I keep seeing articles saying how those two are going to have a big say in the future of Star Wars, and I'm like, giddy up.
Well, considering what the impact Favreau has had on the Marvel universe, it just makes sense that they'd want to port him over to Star Wars and make him do his magic.
Yeah, I understand that The Mandalorian has dethroned Stranger Things as the most in-demand streamed show.
That doesn't surprise me.
The thing that actually makes me happy about it, I was reading up, somebody was talking about the fact that and I think I brought this up last week, it's brought excitement and anticipation back. So with Stranger Things, it comes out on a Friday, you binge watch all 12 or 13 or whatever episodes on Saturday, you talk about it at work for Monday and Tuesday, and then you don't talk about it ever again.
It's true. I am really enjoying the anticipation of the weekly episode. It's been so long since I've wanted to just sit down and watch my show, you know what I mean?
It kind of brings back to the older style of TV where TV didn't come out in giant chunks.
Which is kind of funny because we've now gone full circle.
Totally, yeah. Someone said, that reminds me how someone said, so they're going to package all the streaming services and basically reinvent cable.
Reinvent cable? Oh, God. 55 streams and nothing on. I know I was thoroughly satisfied with this episode. As I said, I think it was the right length for everything they wanted to do. I'm still happy to see that the Mando's still not all powerful and still can get his ass kicked. But will still kick ass when he needs to. I'm also kind of amused that in order to get the bad guys to come to the village to do their plan, they blew up their beer.
That'd do it. I also like how when the walker wouldn't come forward, Cara Dune just went into commando mode and made it happen. And shoots right through the eye of the ATST and gets somebody.
What I'm impressed is that the Mando trusted and respected her enough that he actually gave her his rifle to do it.
I know, right? So did anyone else get on the edge of their seat when the crosshair settled on Baby Yoda?
Damn straight. I was half expecting Baby Yoda, after the shot ran out, Baby Yoda have his little hand out stopping the blaster bolt.
I knew that Disney wasn't going to kill their cash cow.
But the tension was real. I sat forward in my chair and I was yelling, "Don't you dare!"
I'm trying, but I guess the only thing that confused me is I was trying to figure out how the hell did Kara know that there's someone out there, that she was able to sneak, so she was able to sneak up and shoot them in the back.
These rebel commandos, man, they were no joke. They knew their business.
Apparently so.
I'm more hard on the Mando for not having a decent perimeter set up.
He was too busy flirting with the widow.
She kind of hinted to the fact that she had a life before she was a krill farmer, and that's why I was kind of thinking towards the Imperial side of things, because she wants to. She's like, oh well, maybe you don't have to wear this armor anymore, because like maybe she has experience with wearing a specific type of armor that might get her in trouble.
Good theory. I like that.
I wish we had got more backstory on her, because honestly, we'll probably never see her again.
It's Rey's mother.
Oh, come on.
That's it for the crew of the Blackjack tonight, folks. Thanks for joining us. We'll be back next week to talk about Mandalorian Chapter 5. Until then, you can join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, and on Instagram now, @ClanFlynn. And you can support this podcast at patreon.com/VinzerFlynn and our old archived episodes, YouTube/VinzerFlynn. That's a lot of social media. Okay, see you next week. Stay fresh, cheesebags.